Good morning to all. Since the principal is not able to connect with us, so we will start the program. Sir, Gopalakrishnan sir, okay,
sir. Good morning, Valavan from Salem.
Sir, Valavan sir, good morning, sir.
Good morning, good morning. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So we welcome you all for this webinar. I take this opportunity to thank our principal, Dr. J. Sugandhi Madam, for her continuous support. Now I hand over the session to Dr. R. Sendil Kumar, Department of Biochemistry, Head and Assistant Professor of Biochemistry, to deliver welcome address. Sir, Sendil sir.
Sir.
நீங்க continue.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Life throws challenges, and every challenge comes with rainbows and lights to conquer it. A very warm good morning to all of you. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of Periyar EVR College IQAC team on this webinar on new economic challenges and opportunities amidst COVID-19. I am much delighted to welcome our principal to this thought-provoking webinar. And thank you so much, madam, for your acceptance to preside over the function. Without her support and guidance, we could not be able to do such kind of wonderful event in our premises. In this occasion, I really express my heartfelt gratitude, madam. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome today's chief guest, Dr. A. Gopalakrishnan, Associate Professor of Economics of our college. He is a vibrant leader, State Treasurer of Tamil Nadu Government College Teachers Association, and Assistant Professor of Examination of our college, and active researcher, very good academician. And apart from that, he is pillar of our college. Is very kind enough and humanity to everyone. When we approached him to this invitation of this webinar, he readily agreed to deliver his ideas about what kind of economic challenges we are facing today and how overcome from this event. So in this junction, I once again welcome you, sir. It's my privilege to welcome IQAC Coordinator Dr. B. Senthil Kumar, convener of this webinar Dr. D. Senthil Kumar, and organizing charities, and who has taken much effort to arrange such event. I feel honored to welcome all distinguished head of the departments, professors of our college and other colleges, and dear participants. Once again, I welcome you all. I wish you all productive and enjoyable program. Thank you. Next, I would like to invite our
no, sir, Director,
madam,
sir,
to preside over this webinar.
Now, sir, you directly introduce
this web. So I invite Dr. A. Gopalakrishnan sir for his sharing his ideas about the economic challenges and opportunities amidst COVID-19. So welcome our chief guest, sir. Welcome you, sir.
Good morning to all of you, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I see number of notifications from participants that it is not audible. Kindly check it, sir.
Yes, sir. Audible, sir.
Audible,
okay,
sir.
Okay. Shall we start?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
With due respect and gratitude, I must thank our principal for having given us the permission to conduct this webinar, and I must thank the trio Senthil Kumar. We have three Senthil Kumar, Dr. B. Senthil Kumar, Dr. D. Senthil Kumar, Dr. A. Senthil Kumar, R. Senthil Kumar, along with Dr. Ayyavu. And they have been taking this IQAC as a vibrant unit to ensure the quality of higher education as far as the college is concerned. Thank you for organizing so and inviting me. And I see many of the leading personalities on screen, especially Dr. Professor G. Gnanasegaran sir, Good morning, sir. And I feel blessed. I feel blessed to deliver some of my ideas over the topic which is given to me in the present time, the new economic challenges and opportunities amidst the COVID-19, the pandemic period. And here, I want to render justice to the topic. And justice, I want to justify my invitation by the IQAC Periyar UVR College. So I organized kindly ask participants to mute audio, sir. Sir.
Sir. So participants, please mute your audios.
Participants, kindly mute your audios. Only then it will be a fruitful session. Well, okay. See, when we speak of COVID-19, it's a pandemic period, of course. After 100 years, we experience at present yet another pandemic period, just like we had 100 years before, an influenza. Of course, it's a new, unique, a different experience that we had not in the past in our lifetime. Of course, we are undergoing a crisis in all aspects, social, political, as well as economic aspects. But since the platform is the economic platform, today we are going to concentrate only on economic issues pertaining to the COVID-19 pandemic period. When we proceed with the challenges and the opportunities, the two sides of this pandemic period in the economic arena, I would like to brief the crisis that we had experienced in the past. The lots of crises, number of crises. So I organized this presentation in 3 parts. The first portion, I would like to share the experiences of Indian economy with the global economic crisis that we had in the past. So with the background, we would proceed to the next part of what are the challenges before us, what are the challenges that we face, what are the challenges emanated from the present COVID-19 pandemic. And the third part, what are the opportunities and how we proceed with the opportunities to tape and grow more and more. So let me start with the first part, the brief note on the previous crisis that we had in Indian economy, even in the global economy. We might have heard the crisis even before 19th century. But to start with the 19th century, in the year 1920s, we had a global economic crisis. 1920s, we had a global economic crisis, and it was called as US economic recession immediately after the First World War. And since the countries have been linked to each other through trade, that US crisis had spread all over the countries, even India felt it. After that, we all know when we speak about economics and the Keynesian economics, the Great Depression, we never forget to refer to 1929 to 1939. It went on for almost a decade, 10 years, during the period 1929 and 39. And actually, the Great Depression was the cause of over-optimism that prevailed in the United States of America. And 1929, there was a Wall Street crash. Due to over-optimism, the accumulation of deposits, accumulation of financial properties by the institutions, and it led to crash in 1929 and resulted a Great Depression in the same year 1929. It went up to 1939. And we know very well the history of economics taught us to overcome this great depression, John Maynard Keynes helped us a lot, concentrating on how a country, how a government can overcome the economy crisis, especially during the period 1929. Later, in the year 1991, there was a recent crisis, not only recent crisis, the biggest crisis that India had faced in 1991. And during the period of 1991, we had no money even to pay for imports, oil bills. Import liabilities. It was a huge crisis in 1991, and with a great deviation from the policy during the year 1991, the then finance minister, the then Prime Minister Narasimha Rao, Honorable Prime Minister Narasimha Rao, and Dr. Manmohan Singh jointly took steps to bring the economy from the crisis, from the recession, from the crisis into the growth path. So we had experienced the SAP programs, structural adjustment programs. We have experienced lots of banking reforms, financial reforms, and we've opened the economy for the foreign direct investment, foreign private investment, even for portfolio investment, and we made the economy open, and we became more integrated with the global economy. And only then we experienced no country can grow as individual. No country can grow as individuals, but only when we have integrated, coupled with the global economy, we can grow, because the whole world has changed. When the whole world is changing, we cannot remain isolated. So, to take the win-win competition, the Indian economy has tightly forged into Indian global economy, and we experienced a lot of changes, policy departures, even from Nehruvian dogmas during the period 1991. That's why we call New Economic Policy, NEP, New Economic Policy in 1991, that insisted upon privatization, that insisted upon globalization, that insisted upon even PPP, the public-private participation, to bring back the economy from the depression into the boom condition. And we want to recover the economy, and we achieved it through various monetary measures, various financial measures, that we all are well acquainted with all those measures and all those economic period of economy. And later, 2008, subprime crisis, the unscrupulous lending by the United States housing finance institutions led to subprime crisis during the period 2007-8, and it went up to 2010. But during that crisis, it was so different because India was very much experienced as insulated, and very many debates, very many dialogues, and very many studies found that Indian economy was very much insulated from that crisis. Why? Because by the time we were told, Indian economy has a strong foundation, a strongly built monetary system, a strongly built banking system, which helped us to being insulated from the crisis. So we were not very much affected during 2008-2010 crisis that emanated from United States of America. But the question is now, is any country left out from the crisis? The question before us is, any country in the world, on the globe, feels as if it is insulated from the crisis created by this COVID-19 or coronavirus pandemic? If the question is that, the answer that everybody will agree, no country is feeling that it is insulated. Because the whole world has become global village. There is a tight bonding, economic bonding, cultural exchanges, mobilities of goods, mobilities of people, mobilities of investment, mobilities of services, exchange of even traditional values. So in that way, all the countries have been tightly connected, not only economically, but also politically, socially. In that sense, in any trade bloc, in any regional organization, the country taking part in any regional organization or in the international organization cannot come forward to say we are completely insulated. We are not affected. Maybe the data on impact for some countries unavailable. But the thing is, as far as the experience goes, as far as the news that has been streaming, as far as the informations that have been published, we come to know it is a pandemic. That's why we call it is a pandemic period that affects invariably all the economy. But here the question is the intensity of impact that may vary. That we have to wait and watch. We have only projections now. We have only short-term data now. We have only limited information available to us. But we have to wait to see in the long term the impact of COVID-19 pandemic all over the world in all countries, of course. So if this is the case, when this is the case, what is the first and foremost the problem with this COVID-19? When we compare to the previous crisis, when you compare the previous crisis, it is a typical one. Why? Because as far as my knowledge goes, during the previous crisis, the world countries have come together, and they formed a strategy, at least under a leadership, maybe an organization, maybe an institution, maybe a country like developed country like United States of America, Britain, etc. But as far as this specific crisis is concerned, there is a lack of leadership to proceed with the countermeasures, to proceed with the recovery measures. Absolutely, there is a lack of leadership. If you take the developed economy, the United States of America is tightly engaged with the trade war or trade the differences with the second largest economy of the world, China. What about India? India is struggling to contain this pandemic, to recover its economy for its own sake. So here, there is a lack of leadership. You see the models to overcome this pandemic, even World Health Organization. The World Health Organization is the highest organization which has been dealing with the epidemics and the pandemics. It provides alerts and provides supports to the member countries, the whole world countries. But what about the WHO? WHO itself does not know. WHO itself does not know what is the solution. But however, it has been trying to identify vaccine, the region of vaccine is the ties to various countries. But my question is there any model, specific model? The so-called South Korean model has been on debate. The so-called Australian model is on debate. The Singapore model is on debate to counter the pandemic. Why? Because only when we counter the pandemic, we can reduce the impact of pandemic on economy. It would be easy for us to recover the economy. So in that sense, we are talking much about country-specific models. Can we evolve any consensus model which may be suitable for most of the countries? So still we are in the process. There is a lack of leadership. That's why I'm telling you, all the other crises emanated from financial institutions. The crisis which we had discussed earlier had emanated from the financial crisis. The mistakes that committed in the finance, or the disastrous effect of the financial institution of one country that has been spread over the other countries, the whole world. But what about the oil crisis? We had also experienced oil crisis, whether the fourth war between Arabian countries and the Israel. The United States of America had procured or sold lots of weapons, armed weapons to the Israelis, help Israelis. So to retaliate United States in this move, Arabian countries have raised the prices and sanctions, imposed sanctions on oil and petrol export. That have given rise to the economic crisis. That's what we call this. It's an oil crisis, we used to say. So all these crises can be specifically identified with the root. But this 2020 crisis, during the period of pandemic, although the economy was experiencing a recession, the economy is already experiencing a recession. It has deepened, intensified the recession which we already commenced, even before the pandemic period. That is the biggest problem before us. And in spite of lack of leadership, global leadership, in spite of lack of medicines, in spite of the process of evolving vaccines for the coronavirus, novel coronavirus, we are still trying hard. Every country still trying hard to at least protect their economy, to become worse, from being worse than now. So, we are with this background, what are the huge challenges that it poses? When it becomes a challenges, I feel I'm not going to date us because it has been surfacing in all platforms. It has been published more enough. So I thought of dealing it with two aspects. This pandemic period, economic recession, raised several questions before us for economists, for nations to answer. On policy field, on the road to development, the choices, which one is to be chosen? A country has to choose between. Because whenever we feel a crisis, to overcome the crisis, it provides a lot of insights. The insight always helps us to deviate from the earlier path or to choose the earlier one but for the new one which is available. So we have to identify the different options with which, different choices with which every country has to choose. It is a theoretical part. Then what are the specific problems, specific challenges that has to be addressed immediately without any delay? Because there is a dilemma between life and livelihood. When you speak every aspect during the economic crisis, and especially this pandemic period, we have a lot of controls on commutation. People are asked to mobile limitedly, asked to obey by the obedient citizens. We expect them to be obedient citizens. They lost their livelihood, their economy, their income has shrunken, and it has become even for some people nil. So, with this background, I want to discuss this into two categories. One is the policy aspect. Another one is to fewer micro and macro problems that needs to be addressed at the earliest. The first aspect is globalization. The first question arises whether this globalization will continue after this pandemic. The question is being raised in the all debates, whether this type of globalization, will continue forever or will continue even after this pandemic. But when this question raised, most of the people, even from most of the organizations, institutions, the answer is yes, the globalization process continues. But if the question is, will it continue even after the post-COVID period in the same style as before we had? Then it is no, unanimously. Unanimously, it is really a no. Because every people know very well, we cannot decouple from the global economy. It has been already integrated. We cannot disintegrate. It is not at all possible. We cannot grow alone. But can we continue this globalization as we had before? If that is the question, no. We can continue with some changes. That's why even when the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister, when they speak about the Bharat, the self-reliant economy, when they speak about their bailout programs, the financial assistance, the loan schemes, support schemes, when they deliver, and also when they introduce a new scheme which is targeted towards a more self-reliant economy, they also agree that it doesn't mean economy, when it becomes self-reliant, doesn't mean cutting from the global economy or decoupling from the global economy or disintegrated from the global economy. Of course, we have already integrated. We have been a part of global village, but it has been felt by everybody that it is not possible. But do we need some changes in the way in which we have trade relationship? Do we need some changes the way in which we have investment, the multinational flight of investments, multinational corporation, investment by multinational corporations. And we need some changes with which we have some, not only trade, not only the economic ties, the so-called economic ties in various aspects. Some changes we need so as to insulate ourselves from any such crisis in due course. See, when any economy has to be insulated in a win-win, as we all very well know that in the global economy, every economy theoretically ensures a win-win competition and sharing the benefits. That is the basic principle, sharing the benefits. So on that basis only, every economy is being integrated with the global economy, of course. But when some economy finds insulated, say for example, the great powers, China, the great powers, United States of America, the so-called first and second place in terms of their GDP, in terms of their spending, and they have been insulated. And here, the question arises: what about the developing economy? Although China has been considered a developing economy, it had opened its economy and it has deviated from its path even in the early 70s, but we did it only in the 1991. So, as far as when Chinese economy is compared to the Indian economy, they are feeling it that they are leading the whole world. They wanted to lead the world. That's why disruption or dispute arises between United States of America and China. And we all know very well, the United States of America, even after several crises, even after crisis had its genesis from United States of America, remains strong because its currency has been accepted all over the countries. There is a huge demand for the US dollars. Since all the international transactions have been accepted and preferred to be done through US dollar. That's why it remains, one of the reasons for it remains very stronger all through the past. But China has been felt nowadays is trying to or making its own currency to be accepted in the world transaction mostly. If that happens, really China would become a country to replace America in the economic, in terms of economic soundness of economy. That's why there is a dispute between always exchange of words between the rulers of China and the rulers of United States of America. But India is a country which still in the progress, still in the process of progressing, building the economy, self-reliant. When it is become self-reliant, doesn't mean it does not depend on the other country. Here the question, the choices comes as between whether to choose between self-sufficiency or deeper dependency. There are some countries in the international forum, the economic condition, assess their economic conditions. Still, there are several countries, they are deeply depending on others for very many reasons. That's a long debate if we involve in it. But there are certain countries in the same period, in the same globalist era, there are some countries, they are still not depending on others, just sharing their benefits, that's all. Just sharing their benefits. Here the question is, to choose between what? Or to choose between this self-sufficiency or self-reliant and deeper dependency. No country has to choose either deeper dependency or self-sufficiency. Maybe the prevailing conditions make a country to be a deeper dependent. But every country wishes to become self-reliant. But at the same time, economic efficiency. At the same time, economic efficiency in production. The cost differences, as we learned in theories of trade, why theory and how why trade and how trade with countries, we might have learned theories of cost differences, the benefits. Always these factors try to continue the international trade. Every time, as far as the advantages in the trade presence, the efficiency in the production presence, there will be trade among the countries. There will be trade among the countries in terms of cost of production, in terms of availability of resources, resource availability. So these are the fundamental factors that causes trade among nations. Until these factors remains, trade would happen. We cannot insulate a country just by raising walls on all the boundaries, political boundaries. That's why we always say economic boundary is much beyond the political boundary. A country cannot contain its economic activity within the political boundary. So the question is whether to choose between the deeper dependency or self-reliant. Yes, a country has to be more self-reliant, but at the same time, it cannot depend on anyone. It cannot depend on anyone. Then the next question arises, balancing between efficiency and resilience. A balancing demand side and supply side. You have to choose between demand side and supply side. Which one is to be chosen? See, many people say the bailouts by the economy to recover the economy from the pandemic. Government has seriously announced a number of bailouts, assistance. There has been a number of debates. Economists are sitting in different sides have been arguing, yes, this is correct, this is wrong. Here the question comes, which side has to be chosen? Whether to choose between demand side and supply side. We all very well know, supply takes its own care. Need not much intervention by the government. When John Maynard Keynes say, economists should think in the short time in the long term, everybody will vanish. So we have to think of the short span of time, short-term economy. And he insisted very much upon the demand side. And he insisted to increase the role of government. And in that way, there must be a choice between the two sides, whether to the bailout in terms of direct cash to the customers to boost the demand, because many of us strongly believe that the present recession, even before the pandemic, has been created by the shortfall in the demand side. So it is a real time the country has to choose. It has to bail out. It has to assist. But to which side? Demand side. To push the demand side or to push the supply side? And pathetically, bailout, most of the bailouts, except the direct cash transfers to the poor people announced by the Prime Minister, some 12,000 or 35,000 or number of money allocated for Manreka program, which injects money directly into the poor mass. But for other monetary side measures, it concentrates much on the supply side. So it is a right time to choose between which is to be given more weightage. The problem-specific solution has to be decided. The next one is whether to choose the balancing the advantages and the risk of globalization. How to balance the advantages of risk and advantages and risk of globalization. See, every coin has two sides. It is the question how one becomes successful remains or lies on how a country balances between advantages and risks. How we face the risk, how we increase the advantages. Although it is a win-win competition, globalization poses a win-win competition, every country tries to win more, take more share, benefit more as against the opponent. In that sense, it is a question of choosing between the weightage to be provided, how to take the advantages or how to face the risk, how to avoid the risk if it could not be avoided, how to balance these two opposites, because we have more advantages as well as more risks in the global economy. So it lies on the capability of the country to capitalize the advantages and to minimize the risk. It lies on the capability of the country. By suitable and pragmatic policy, one can capitalize the advantages and reduces or minimizes the risk so as to benefit more. So this way, we have to choose between. Some are speaking like a nationalist, make in India, and see, even before independence, we were protested against the British avoiding their foreign products. அந்நிய பொருட்களை நம்ம வாங்கக்கூடாது அப்படிங்கிற ஒரு பெரிய ஸ்லோகன் போயிட்டு இருக்கு, ட்ரெண்ட் ஆகிட்டு இருக்கு. இப்போ we should not purchase the foreign made products. If that is the case everywhere, what happens? So there is a debate. There is an ongoing disruptive discussion on either on nationalism, to choose between nationalism or the so-called globalism. Living in a global arena, that's why we all very well know we cannot go back to the a singular country with walls raised on the all boundaries, having no ties, trade relationship or economic relations with any other country. Even the government very well know that it cannot cut its relationship. Rather, it can insulate more by pursuing a policy of self-reliant economy, by producing more and more in manufacturing sector and replacing the imports, of course. So this has been the policy makers before us to decide. And The challenges as of now, the highly debated challenge is the problem that it has been created in the MSME sector and migrant laborers. Migrant laborers, the challenges. See, we saw on TV screen, many people traveled, commuted on their foot to their native places. Many people, even people who have been given assurance for their food and shelter, made to stay in a camp, they protested, demanding to deport them to their native places. Why it happens? If they had traveled for food, they should have remained in the camp. If they had traveled for the purpose of their shelter, they should have remained in the camp. Of course, many thousands and thousands of migrant laborers have not given this facility, but in spite of that, even those who are provided with the facility, shelter facility and food facility, had also chosen to travel on foot either. Why it happens? The biggest question. When I interacted with a constructor, a builder, he said, "Sir, we could not proceed with the construction as before because we are finding short of laborers." I asked him, "Why, sir? There are a number of laborers who have been available here for the construction works. Why do you prefer?" He explained shortly, "Sir, when we use the laborers from Bihar, when we use the laborers from the migrant laborers, it is advantageous for us in terms of cost and time." He told me it is advantageous in terms of cost and time. How it is advantageous? They are made to stay here 24/7. They have contact with their family only over phone. They cook here, stay here, eat here, stay here, work here. And they collect their salary. They collect the salary as it accumulated over the period whenever they go home. Or they send it to the family. Here, when they stay here, they don't mind working an extra hour. They are not questioning the builders. So they feel it is convenient for them and more profitable for them to employ the migrant laborer because it is advantageous, profitable in terms of cost and time. They can finish the project as soon as at the earliest with lesser cost in terms of labor cost. But that may be the reason. That may not be the sole reason. But here the question comes: why they have chosen to commute on foot? That has become the question. Even when they assured with a job, it is a accepted psychology on the part of the laborers, not only laborers, even white-collar job holders. The people have been traveled across the countries, worked even in European countries or even in other countries. Once we used to say proudly, my son has been working in United States of America. My daughter has settled in Britain. My son has been Australia, in Singapore. Which means, by saying that, we feel proud as if we are in a better position, economically and socially better position. But it is not the case at present. The pandemic just reverted everything. Everybody wants to rush to move to their own native place. Why? Because it's psychology. It's a psychology, whether we have given with the foot or not, whether we are given with the so-called shelter or not, whether we are permitted to take our property or not. We feel safe at the time of crisis only with the kith and kins, only with our relatives, only in the motherland, only in the native places. That is a well-established now because every individual psychologically feels so. At times of crisis, we would like to be with our kith and kins, our blood, along with our blood relatives, along with the place where we born and dwell. That has been the system. It is psychology of the people. Here question comes, okay, they are committed to the native place. After pandemic, will they come back? Will they come back? Because lots of MSME sector, they could resume production in full capacity provided the credit facility and as well as the laborers have to return from their native place. They are already gone. They have to return from native places. Only they can resume the conditions as before we had. This is the normalcy, so-called normalcy. But when we speak normalcy, we always endorse the normalcy hereafter we are going to resume is only going to be a new normalcy. Even now we speak, it is not a normal condition. We want to restore the new normal condition. Whatever we was felt as bad now becomes good. Even now, I released many times listening to Dr. Gnanasevaran sir, but today I could meet him only virtually, only over phone or on the virtual platform. The total lifestyle has changed. Total lifestyle has changed. What we felt as a sophistication might have been changed. Lots of changes. The approach changes. Here comes the question. If we bring back the economy, to a new normal at least, what shall we do? How this challenge has to be faced? Here we need to have a pragmatic approach and multi-dimensional approach. Say for example, a unit, MSME unit, wants to restore and function as before. It needs its labor as it had before, and it needs a working capital as it had before, and it has to have market as it had before. Only when these three things are available, liquidity, market, and the laborers, they can resume their function as before. So multi-dimensional issue, it is a multi-dimensional issue. This migrant labor issue, it's not just issue of food, providing food or providing job at their native place itself. It is an issue or the problem which has to be approached from different angles. Company is ready to provide a job after normalcy, suppose. Will they come back? If they don't come back, how will they substitute? Yes, government had announced lots of about 10% of GDP bailout, but mostly in terms of monetary measures, borrowings, in terms of credit facilities. In terms of credit facilities, how many MSME units are in a position to avail these credit facilities, or how many bankers do really abide by the announcements of the government and to provide facilities to the credit facilities, the MSME units? That has been the question. So these are all the questions before us. Only then the last job can be generated, the last productions can be generated, and as well the livelihood can be generated. So simply we can say many individuals, their income has shrunken to the large extent. And as far as my memory goes, when I read the last economic survey 2020, there is a quote from Tirukkural. There is a quote from Arthasastra, Kaudilya's Arthasastra, and that insisted upon wealth creation and wealth creators. Arthasastra had remarkably made a quote saying that the creation of wealth is more important, and creators also more important, as it caters the needs. It caters the needs and removes the darkness of the economy. So it has been referred to, and it has also listed some 10 ideals, 10 goals 10 policies, principles, whatsoever it is. Of this one is the economic activity, enhancing economic activity. Almost 43% of economic activity has become standstill, stagnated. Previously, we had experienced stagflation. Hope we may also experience it. On one side, there is inflation, differential pricing. On the other side, there is a stagnation. The manufacturing sector, even now, it could not resume its production. Many manufacturing units could not resume its production. How can they reach these ideals? As laid down in the economic survey, the 43% of economic activities has become nil. It has shrunken to almost half of the economic activity. It is limited. Somewhere it is as if it is prohibited. People movements are very much limited, maybe for good cause on the health aspects. But when we are asking them to remain at home without job, especially in the manufacturing sector, once a fine morning we've opened everything, okay, resume it. How can they? It's a biggest challenge. Unless otherwise the economic activities have been brought back to the normal as we had earlier, we cannot achieve not only just growth, but also the development in other areas too. See, the economic survey insisted upon wealth creators. I would like to read they had mentioned the Tirukkural, பொருள் அதிகாரத்தில் வரக்கூடிய திருக்குறளை மென்ஷன் பண்ணியிருந்தாங்க. அந்த திருக்குறள் என்ன சொல்லுச்சுன்னா, ஜஸ்ட் ஹேவ் அ ரீடிங். பொருளென்றும் அணையா விளக்கு அதை உடையவர் இணைத்த இடங்களெல்லாம் சென்று பொருளென்னும் பொய்யா விளக்கம் இருளருக்கும் எண்ணிய தேய்த்து சென்று. பொருளென்னும் பொய்யா விளக்கம், வைத்து போகாத விளக்கு, அது வைத்திருக்கவர் எண்ணிய இடத்தெல்லாம் சென்று இருள் அகற்றும் என்பதுதான் அந்த குறள். இப்போ பொருளுக்கு கொடுக்குற முக்கியத்துவம் அதுதான் அவங்க மென்ஷன் பண்ணியிருக்காங்க. மென்ஷன் இன் தி எக்கனாமிக் சர்வே. ஈவன் the economic advisor to chief economic advisor to the government of India, Prime Minister of India, had also pointed out. So they had given priority. They laid emphasis on wealth creators. If wealth creators, even at the district level, MSME sectors, they create wealth. If they are affected, what happened to these unfailing lamps, which are expected to spread all over the economy, all over the nation, and to remove the darkness? Of course, that is so to challenge. All the projections, the CRISIL and other rating agencies have projected the global economy as well as Indian economy. As far as my knowledge goes, all the projections have been giving only gloomy picture. Even a day before, a report came from Reserve Bank of India governor. As far as his statement reveals, we are passing through the worst situation which we never ever had in the past 12 years. It is a statement issued by the Reserve Bank of India governor. We are going through a miserable condition. The recession which had started earlier before the pandemic has been deepened. We have been fast moving towards the achieving a negative growth, which has been termed as worstest even by the Reserve Bank governor. Such a miserable condition that we have been passing through, even in all the economy in the world. No condition, exceptional case. That is a challenge, the biggest challenge. And we must also remember another Quran here. The Thiruvalluvar has given another Quran, same, the next to 754, the Quran. அரண் ஈனும் இன்பமும் ஈனும் திறனறிந்து நீதின்றி வந்த பொருள். பொருள் ஈட்டிய பொருள் என்பது அறனையும் நீதியையும் பின்பற்றி நம்மளுடைய திறனால் ஈட்டிய பொருளாக இருந்தால் மட்டும்தான் அது இன்பத்தையும் தரும், அறத்தையும் தரும், மகிழ்ச்சியையும் தரும். So here it speaks about ethics and morals. Ethics and morals. Whenever new economic policies insisted upon wealth creators, broad businessman policy, and it has insisted upon ethics as well as morals. And we all know very well what has become ethics and what has become morals at present in the business days to win over the competitor. Everybody is facing cutting edge competition. So it is a problem, challenges. The next one is volatility in the market, whether it is a goods market or it is a financial market. It exhibits volatile nature. There is ups and downs, and there has been a falling indexes with a restricted movement of goods and services, with a restricted movement of people, with the increasing oil prices. The cost of transportation has been increased. So, cost of transportation has been increased amidst restrictions of movements. We know nowadays restrictions have been imposed by the governments at the local levels. The local level. A transporter, suppose transports goods and services from capital city to the remote places, which falls under the category of a township, might not know when it begins the travel that when it reaches the town, it will not be permitted inside the town. That it happens nowadays. See, there is a lockdown, phase 3.0, with all liberalization, with relaxations, of course. But people cannot move beyond the district boundary without e-pass. Without e-pass, we don't mention about, we need not discuss about the exceptional cases. Exceptional cases. The goods are permitted to move from one place to other places. But when it is being commuted from one place to other places, really, in real sense, the goods, when it travel, faces a lot of problem from the local authorities. So it means the supply chain in the product market has been disrupted. At the point of production, at the point of exchange, at the point of marketing. Not only at a single point, the supply chain has been strained and the supply chain has been affected and faces serious challenges when it is being committed. And differential prices, price inflation, and we all very well know when a person sells at a higher price, the price will sustain, the price will increase and leads to inflation, and we may change the index, we may calculate whatever it is. But from the experience that you have, that we gain from the market, people are used to say prices have gone up. Some prices have gone up. I went to a shop and I asked, in the month of March, I bought one product at a price. In the month of May, I went to the same shop and I asked the same product. And he asked me higher price. I asked him why. The same product I bought in the month of March and I paid only this much. And why should I pay more? He said, no supply, sir. Only I have this limited supply. More demand. Here economy operates. Demand exceeds supply contracts. What happens? This demand supply gap make the seller to demand high price. Actually, we cannot match with the demand supply of all the products because of this disruption in the transportation, of course. And liquidity crisis, not only for the state, but also for the individuals. In the households, there's a liquidity crunch. Many of us have lost their income. Many's income have come down sharply to a considerable extent. And whatever the plan they had earlier, certainly they cannot go with that plan. And the people need to spend only for the necessities nowadays. They do not create demands. They adopt wait and watch policy. They do not adopt, okay, today when we have money, liquidity, we used to buy as when we wish to buy, that's all. We go and buy it. But now consumer behavior has changed a lot. Because of liquidity crunch, they want to keep the liquidity for the future because it becomes uncertain future, indeterminate condition. So their behavior, buying behavior changed a lot. So there's a shortfall in demand again, and the demand has come down. What will happen? It will not meet with it will not meet the supply. Here, the supply also in the disruptive mode. Here is another challenge: how to increase the liquidity. Only the direct cash transfer, as advocated by many people, to the poor and needy people, especially those who have been employed in the unorganized sector, informal sector, would help them to gain their liquidity back. Then depletion of foreign exchange reserve, even the currency's values has gone down considerably against the US dollar. And the contraction in the global market again leads to contraction in the domestic market. And in every corner we face challenges. And one another, they are considered to be interlinked. To face the challenges, what do we need? That is the question before us. What do we need? Of course, every individual, every government, every country, the whole world faces the problem which we had never before and we had never experienced before, of course. But in spite of that, the livelihood has to be given much priority. Only when livelihood is ensured, life is ensured. The choice between life and livelihood. When you choose to give more importance to livelihood, it will lead to life. At the same time, life also to be given priority. So it has to be, we need to balance life and livelihood. In terms of saving life, we cannot deny the livelihood activity. When we permit livelihood activity, we have to also ensure the life. So we have to choose between these two. It is we need to have a pragmatic approach, of course, but at the same time, every crisis left with us not only the challenges but also the opportunities. What are the opportunities we have at present? What are the opportunities we have at present? There are a lot of opportunities on other areas. As far as economy is concerned, we need to innovate more. It is the time to innovate more. It is the time to use more innovations. And time also is a factor. Nowadays, we have enough time to concentrate on work. Although work from home, we have enough time to allot for work because we have no time for entertainment because it is not permitted. We cannot visit mall, it is closed. We cannot visit entertainment hall, cinema, theatre or drama hall because it is shut. We cannot go for gym because it is shut. So these times which we usually spend, and usually we spend time with the friends, all this time now is at our hand. The most precious factor, time. We can use it positively. We can use it alternatively. We can reallocate our routine of work so that we can make use of it. So we have to innovate our ideas. We have to innovate in our ideas. And when we go for other areas, as far as opportunities, the relocation of multinational corporations. Relocation of multinational corporations. So India has very good opportunity to attract selective multinational companies into India, which previously had its affiliates, its subsidiaries in other countries. Because many countries, even in software IT industry, even in the manufacturing industry, many MNCs have been in thinking of relocations from some countries. And it is the time to evolve policies to attract those investments into India so that Indian productive capacity can be increased as well as the jobless people can be given with a job. So opportunities are there with this pandemic period. We can use these opportunities also, and it is all depending upon how we balance this the challenge, face these challenges, and take the opportunities that lies in the success. And hope the Indian economy had come across several crises successfully, and we also come across this crisis successfully. I hope so. With thanks to the organizers, IPSC team from our college. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Shall we go to the question answer session, sir? Sir, shall we go to the question answer session, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let it be open for discussion.
Okay, sir. There are some questions in the chat box, sir.
Okay.
So I will read out, sir. How long it will take time to recover the economic status, sir? Can you please explain?
Time frame. The question asked time frame. How long will it take Indian economy to recover from this pandemic crisis, recession? How long will it take? It's only a projection. It's only a projection. To recover from this recession, first we have to recover from this COVID-19. When we say it will take 1 year or 2 years, it will be the mere projection. It needs to create some a conducive climate for the economy to recover first. How to develop the economy? First, the recession in global economy has impacted us. So first, global economy has to develop first to come back, recover from the recession. Then, the Indian economy must attract more investment. To create more investment, we have to create a climate of trust. As the economic survey emphasized, the trust of the people. The trust of the people has to be gained. The so-called wealth creators have to come forward to invest more and more. Only when they invest more, the economic activities will be resumed, and simultaneously we have to come out of this pandemic by developing the vaccine. Only then we can come out of this recession. But I think this recession will not last for more than 2 years. We can at least by the end of 2022, we will be in a position to recover. I think so. Only projection, but it may not be right.
Okay, so thank you, sir. Next question, sir. Question from Dr. A. Shanmugam from Musari College. பன்னாட்டு வாணிபம் இல்லாத சூழலில் இன்றைய பெருந்தொற்று காலத்தில் சுதேசி இயக்கம் என்னும் செயல் திட்டம் எந்தெந்த துறைகளுக்கு சாதகமாக அமையும்?
சுதேசி இயக்கம் அப்படிங்கிறது இந்த கொஸ்டின்ல பாத்தீங்கன்னா பன்னாட்டு வாணிபம் இல்லாத சூழல் ஒரு பெரிய அசம்ஷன். அப்படி ஒரு சூழல்ல இருக்க முடியாது. ஏன்னா நான் ஏற்கனவே சொன்னது பன்னாட்டு வாணிபத்தை விட்டு நம்ம எந்த ஒரு நாடும் இல்ல நான் தனியாவே இருக்கிறேன் என் பார்டரை க்ளோஸ் பண்ணிக்கிறேன் அப்படிங்கிறதுலாம் இயலாத ஒரு சூழல்ல இருக்கும். இயலவு மட்டும் இல்ல, நல்லதும் கிடையாது இது. ஆனா அதே சமயத்துல சுதேசி மூவ்மெண்ட், நான் ஏற்கனவே சொன்னது போல சுதேசி மூவ்மெண்ட் நம்மளுடைய சுதந்திர போராட்ட காலத்திலே நம்ம எடுத்து வைத்த அந்த கோஷம். இந்திய பொருட்களுக்கு ஒரு மார்க்கெட் கிரியேட் பண்ணணும், மேக் இன் இந்தியா. அது என்ன சொல்றேன்னு சொன்னா, we have to convert the Indian traders into Indian makers. அந்த வணிகர்கள் வந்து என்ன செய்யணும், நம்ம வந்து உற்பத்தியாளர்களாக மாற்றுவது அந்த சக்சஸ் இருக்கு நமக்கு. இட் இஸ் நாட் கொஸ்டின் ஆஃப் ரீப்ளேஸ்மெண்ட். அதாவது இம்போர்ட் பண்ற ஐட்டத்தை வந்து நம்ம இங்க ப்ரொடியூஸ் பண்றதுங்கிறத தாண்டி நம்ம காம்படிட்டிவா குவாலிட்டி ப்ராடக்ட் இங்கே பண்ணோம்னா அதையும் நம்ம எக்ஸ்போர்ட் பண்ணலாம். It is a choice of the customers. In the global era, it is the choice of the consumers. The people will demand only the good which has high quality and a low price. So it is a choice of customers. அதனால நம்ம வந்து சுதேசி மூவ்ங்கிறது வந்து செல்ஃப் ரிலையன்ட் எக்கானமிக்காக வாணியத்தில் மட்டும் இருக்கிறவங்களும் நம்ம என்ன சொல்றோம், உற்பத்தியாளர்களா மாற்றணும். The traders have to be converted into producers. And wherever the area we are suffering a lot, இன்னும் சொல்லணும்னு சொன்னா நமக்கு எந்தெந்த துறைகள்ல வந்து இன்னும் ப்ரொடக்ஷன்ஸ் கம்மியா இருக்கு அப்படின்னு நினைக்கிறோமோ, அதிகமா இம்போர்ட் பண்றோமோ, அதெல்லாம் என்ன செய்யலாம், now we can make our own. India can be the manufacturing hub of the world. இங்க இருந்து எக்ஸ்போர்ட் பண்ணலாம். அது இம்போர்ட் பண்ணாலும் இல்லை, இம்போர்ட் நடக்கும், எக்ஸ்போர்ட் நடக்கும். ஸோ இன்டகிரேஷன், the integrated global economy cannot be disintegrated.
Okay. So next question from Dr. S. Revati. What will be the position of small and micro enterprises after pandemic period, sir?
Yeah, it has to revive. Small and micro enterprises has to be revived because it has contributed the larger volume of job opportunity to the migrant laborers, not only migrant laborers in the unorganized sector. Even if you calculate in the total employment, in the chunk of employment has been created by MSME sector, and it has been given the credit facilities. It has been provided with we have to bring back the laborers, and the market has also ensured. அதுக்குரிய அந்த மார்க்கெட் அங்காடி, அந்த பொருள் வந்து விற்பனை செய்வதற்கான அங்காடி தயாரா இருக்கணும், வாங்குறதுக்கு தயாரா இருக்கணும். அப்போ லிக்விடிட்டி இருக்கணும் மக்கள்கிட்ட. லிக்விடிட்டி என்ஷூர் பண்ணி அதன் மூலமா அதனுடைய அங்காடியை நம்ம என்ஷூர் பண்ணணும். அதே போல இந்த பக்கம் அவங்களுக்கு லேபரும் கொடுக்கணும், கிரெடிட் ஃபெசிலிட்டிஸும் கொடுத்து அப்பதான் அவங்க வந்து ரிவைவ் பண்ண முடியும். Hope they have to be revived because their contribution is very much considerable for the growth of economy.
Okay, sir. So next question, sir. Atulya Sebastian, she asked the question as our country become more self-reliant, will new companies have better opportunities post COVID-19?
Yeah, certainly. COVID-19 has opened new avenues for establishment of new companies. It is not only caused the relocation of existing and established companies, but also caused to open up new areas, new companies. And the starters have a lot of opportunities. The startup companies have a lot of opportunities. That is where we say there is it opened up a lot of avenues for startup companies, avenues for relocated companies, and of course the new companies will have a better opportunity after post-pandemic.
Thank you, sir. Next question, sir, by Bhuvana Ishwari. Each country wants to hire their own citizens and send back migrated citizens. Do you think it is correct?
Pardon, sir?
Each country wants to hire their own citizens and send back migrated citizens. Do you think it is correct?
Actually, திரைகடல் ஊழியும் பிறவியும் தேடு அப்படிங்கிறது வந்து அவை பாட்டினுடைய அந்த முதுமொழி. லேபர் யாரெல்லாம் மைக்ரேட் பண்றதுக்கு ரெடியா இருக்காங்களோ அவங்க தான் சர்வை பண்ண முடியும், அவங்க தான் வந்து சக்சஸ்ஃபுல்லா இருக்க முடியும் அப்படிங்கறதுதான் உண்மை. பட் திஸ் பிரசன்ட் கொஸ்டின் லைஸ் ஆன் தி பிரின்சிபல் ஆஃப் சன் ஆஃப் பாய்ஸ். In very many places, the locals, when they are not having jobs, they try to attack on immigrant employees, and they forced to immigrate. Someone else has come from other land, other foreign countries, to come here and work here, enjoy the benefits, and the local people who remain unemployed. So this local unemployed people argues on the basis of the son of soil that when we are not given with the job, why the people from abroad are given with the job? That is the question. But in a labor market, if mobility is restricted, if mobility from country to country is restricted, that will not ensure the flow of services, the quality services. The flow of services, especially quality services, only when it is ensured, we can have a better growth, a better efficiency in production, and better terms of trade in the trade. Otherwise, it will not serve the purpose. Especially in the United States of America, the students have gone from India and other countries. Now they have been denying their visa, saying that they are going to study only online. Whoever wants to study online, they are not given visa. It is the decision made by the administration of United States of America, but it does not send a good signals.
Okay, sir. Sir, last question, sir. Sir, last question. Immediate outcome of COVID-19 is increased unemployment. What will be the long-term efforts on our Indian economy?
Yeah, see, most of the people are living upon their livelihood upon the agriculture, MSME sector, informal, unorganized sectors. Only limited people are being engaged in the organized sector, ensued with the retirement income. For us, majority of the people have been engaged or employed in the unorganized sector, informal sector, and MSME. So, only when these people have been taken care with ensuring the employment opportunity, the regular income, the economy could thrive upon. Because they will create a demand for the manufactured goods. If they are losing their income, employment, subsequently income, they could not create demand. When there is no demand, again, the supplied products will not be sold. When the product is not sold, it will become glut. When there is a glut, there will be further production. So, what happens? The chain of reactions, in the sense, unless otherwise, these people have been taken care of, we cannot come out of this crisis as well as we cannot ensure our growth.
Okay, so thank you, sir. Now let me welcome our Dr. D. Sendil Kumar for vote of thanks. Sir, Sendil Kumar, sir, deliver vote of thanks, sir.
Once again, I extend my heartfelt thanks to you and the participants for being patient all throughout this time, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So over to Sendil Kumar, sir.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
sir,
நீங்க பேசுங்க சார்.
okay. Very good afternoon to all. It is our duty to express the word of gratitude to present and the guidance where this program is great success. First of all, I would like to record my sincere thanks to our dynamic principal Dr. J. Suganthi ma'am, your valuable presence, contribution, and continuous encouragement have given a new hope to our academic endeavor. Thank you very much, ma'am. I express my profound gratitude to the resource person of this program, Dr. J. Komalakrishnan, Associate Professor of Economics, Periyar EVR College, Tiruchirappalli, who made available on the studies knowledge on the topic, new economic challenges and the opportunities amidst COVID-19. Thank you, sir. Once again, thank you very much, sir. Next, I would like to thank the ICS coordinator and the webinar organizing secretary, Dr. P. Sendil Kumar, and the another organizing secretary, Dr. K. Ayyavur, for the support and the coordination to make this program a grand success. Thank you very much, sir. I express my sincere thanks to webinar convener, Dr. Sendil Kumar, head of the Department of Biochemistry, Periyar EVR College, Tiruchirappalli, for his constant support for the success of the program. Thank you very much, sir. I thank all the office staff members of Periyar EVR College, Tiruchirappalli for the support and the encouragement expanded to us. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Finally, I express my sincere thanks to all the participants to the involvement, cooperation, and patient listening. Thank you very much. Once again, thanks to one and all present here. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank